This may look like nothing more than a pile of snow, but for the Inuit it's a complete home. It's called an igloo, and it's built by stacking blocks of snow into a strong dome that can withstand fierce winds and Arctic storms. But the moment you look at it, one question immediately comes to mind. Can a person really sleep inside a house made entirely of snow? Especially when the temperature outside drops to 84 degrees Fahrenheit below zero, about minus 64 degrees Celsius. In cold like that, an exposed person could freeze to death in a very short time. So how can this icy shelter become a place where people spend the night and survive? The answer may seem impossible, but it's true. The Inuit are the indigenous people of the Arctic regions of northern Canada, Greenland, and parts of Alaska. They have lived in these harsh environments for thousands of years, in places where trees are almost non-existent and temperatures fall to levels most people can hardly imagine. They had no concrete houses and no modern heating systems, so they had no choice but to make use of what nature provided. One of the things they became most famous for is the igloo. But the question still remains, how can anyone sleep inside a house made of snow? Wouldn't it be just as cold inside as it is outside? Actually, no. And this is where the first surprise begins. Snow may feel cold, but it is actually one of nature's best insulating materials. That's because snow isn't a solid block of ice. It's filled with millions of tiny pockets of trapped air. And that trapped air slows the transfer of heat dramatically. That's why thick snow blocks used to build an igloo prevent the extreme cold outside from quickly entering, while also keeping the heat inside from escaping easily. But insulation alone isn't enough. Even if the igloo is well insulated, the temperature inside would still be very low. So where does the heat come from? Is body heat alone enough? And what if they light a fire or use an oil lamp inside a house made entirely of snow? Wouldn't the walls start melting immediately? Surprisingly, the answer isn't what most people expect. In reality, when the Inuit use a small stone oil lamp fueled with seal or whale oil, or in some cases a simple stove, the temperature inside the igloo gradually begins to rise. But amazingly, the walls don't collapse the way you might expect. What actually happens is that the very thin inner layer of snow melts slightly from the heat. Then, after a short time, as it comes into contact with the colder snow beneath it, it freezes again. This time, however, it forms a hard layer of ice. That icy layer acts like a protective shell, preventing the walls from continuing to melt. So instead of turning into a puddle of water, as many people imagine, the igloo actually becomes stronger and more durable. Even with that heat, though, the inside doesn't become warm like a modern home. The Inuit didn't sleep in ordinary clothing, and they never slept directly on the snow. Instead, they built a raised sleeping platform out of snow and covered it with thick layers of animal hides and fur, such as caribou, bear, or seal fur. And here's another secret that many people don't realize. Cold air is heavier than warm air, so it always sinks. That's why the sleeping platform is built higher than the entrance to the igloo. The coldest air settles near the lower entrance, while the warmer air stays in the upper part of the shelter where people sleep. That design alone can make a significant difference in temperature without the need for any modern technology. Even so, the Inuit didn't rely on the igloo alone because that wasn't enough to survive. Their clothing was an essential part of staying alive. They made it from animal hides and fur, leaving layers of trapped air between them because, once again, trapped air is one of the best natural insulators. Their boots, gloves, and hoods were also designed to leave almost no part of the body exposed. They also slept close together, allowing their body heat to warm one another, making it much easier to stay warm than sleeping alone. Even breathing inside the igloo played a role. The air people exhale is warm and moist, and over the course of several hours it combines with body heat and the small heat source to gradually raise the temperature inside. But that creates another problem. If the igloo were completely sealed, oxygen levels would begin to drop, and gases would build up inside. That's why the Inuit always left a very small ventilation hole at the top of the dome. While the temperature outside the igloo might be around 84 degrees Fahrenheit below zero, the temperature inside can rise to around the freezing point and sometimes even slightly above it if there's a heat source and several people inside. Freezing may still sound cold to us, but compared to 84 degrees below zero, that difference is enormous, and it can be the difference between life and death.